be good to go. Y'all know what to do. Drop a 1 in the chat if you can hear me. Drop a 1 in the chat if you can see me. And welcome back, guys. Welcome back to another YouTube live stream. Welcome back to another episode of the show. A lot going on today, and we're going to get into it. Thank you all for being here and supporting. We're going to talk about some breaking news when it comes to Jarvis Butts, the man who admitted to and pled guilty to murdering Neziah Harris. It gets crazy. We're going to talk about some Taylor Frankie Paul news, update on that situation. We've got the closing arguments for Kelsey Fitzsimmons. And then, of course, I know y'all saw the title. We're going to get into what's going on with the election fraud in California. The sheriff out there has had enough, and we're going to, of course, talk about what's going on here in Fulton County. But before I do, I've got to say what's up to the people. Thank you, and shout out to everybody who's in the building. We've got my beautiful, awesome, amazing Amy E is in here. Les Cleaver is in the building. We got Taco Tuesday is up in here as well. Good to see y'all, and happy Friday Eve. Almost at the end of another week. This time is going by quick. I cannot believe it. Again, thank you so much to y'all who have been supporting. We've had, oh man, quite an exciting week this week. We had Senator Greg Dolezal here. He's running for lieutenant governor. We got to have a great conversation with Garland Favorito, and we've got more great conversations coming up in the next couple of weeks as well. So make sure y'all stay tuned in for that. And I'm so thankful and glad that people are willing to stop by the show and share their wealth of knowledge, what they have going on, what they've been working on here in Fulton County in Georgia and across the nation. So thank you guys for continuing to support there. Listen, as I said, y'all, we've got a lot to get into and cover today. So I'm going to get right into the content. If you haven't yet, please make sure you like the video on your way in. Likes are free. It helps the channel continue to grow. It lets the algorithm know you guys are enjoying the show. It shares the video, the channel, and this live stream with more people. Over 300 of you have already done that, so thank you. If you're feeling extra generous, you can share the video as well. All you have to do is click the share button. It's got an arrow curved and pointing to the right, and that'll allow you to share the video to any social media platform you're on, as well as text message. You can text it to people too, which is super dope. And then at the end of the show, I will be reading super chats as well. So thank you to everybody who goes the extra mile and supports. Mr. Brown was going crazy supporting yesterday, along with Amy and several others of y'all. So thank you guys for the love. Let's go ahead and get right into it. This is an interesting situation. And I want to say I called it. I didn't think it was going to happen this way, but when it comes to Jarvis Butts, the man, this evil, despicable, disgusting man that murdered Neziah Harris, got her pregnant, and also assaulted his own children in an adult manner and other children, he has been found dead in his cell. What? Yes, this is breaking news. Thank you to Amy for actually reporting this. If you guys don't follow Amy on X, you need to do that if you want to stay up to date on all the news we report on here on the channel and also beyond. She covers so much. Make sure you follow Amy on X at IAmyLeigh on X. That's at IAMYLEIGH on X. She says this, breaking news, Jarvis Butts, the Detroit man who pled guilty in the disappearance and murder of 13-year-old Neziah Harris, as well as his 5 other criminal cases involving multiple victims over several years, was found dead in his prison cell, sources tell MDN. We're going to get into a couple articles here and talk about, and then I actually want to rewind and hear the first judge that was basically telling us that this man needed to be gone. She called him a monster. We'll get into that in a second. But what does Metro Detroit News have here? They say Jarvis Butts convicted in Neziah Harris murder, found dead in prison. Jarvis Butts, the Detroit man who pleaded guilty in the disappearance and murder of 13-year-old Neziah Harris, as well as 5 other criminal cases involving multiple victims over several years, was found dead in his prison cell. Butts was being housed at a prison in Jackson. Details about what happened have not yet been released, and of course we'll report on it here as we hear it. Jarvis had been sentenced to 35 to 60 years in prison after entering guilty pleas during a pretrial conference before Judge Nicholas Hathaway under a sentencing agreement reached in February. The murder conviction stemmed from the case of Harris, who disappeared on January 9th, 2024, after getting off of a bus on the Detroit's east side. Her body was never recovered, and investigators previously said digital evidence, phone records, witness statements, and forensic findings link Butts to her death. And it is believed that her body was dumped in the Rogue River near Berg and 7 Mile. The other cases involved multiple victims and SA, as we know, of children over a span of years. Prosecutors outlined incidents dating back more than a decade involving girls between the ages of 4 and 12, as well as incidents involving his own daughter when she was 8 years old. And she even gave a statement during that sentencing as well, which is just disgusting. Several additional charges across the 6 cases were dismissed as a part of the plea agreement. Well, he won't have to worry about that now because he gone. Jarvis Butts dies in prison weeks after sentencing for killing Neziah Harris. We hear from Fox 2, and they've got a little bit more information and background here. They said the Michigan Department of Corrections confirmed that Butts died Thursday at Charles Egler, I'm probably saying that wrong, at Charles E. Reception and Guidance Center in Jackson. So he never even made it to jail, which is amazing. What a coward. His cause of death was not revealed, and we don't know for sure yet. Butts was incarcerated after being sentenced to 35 to 60 years, as we know, 2 weeks ago. The 43-year-old pleaded guilty to second-degree murder for the death of Neziah Harris, who was 13. He was also sentenced to 5, 10 to 15-year sentences for assaulting children in a certain manner. Harris was last seen getting off a bus in Detroit in January 2024, and that's when she disappeared, as we just read. So not too much detail here in the article. But I also want to do a rewind and go back to the pretrial and go back to before all of this happened. We got to hear from a judge who had reviewed all the evidence, as we reviewed here on the channel, and got to see everything this man did, everything he said, all the evidence, and she was absolutely disgusted. And to see that this, not only did the people around him know what he was capable of because he had already been convicted of certain crimes, but allowed him to be around other children. It was only a matter of time before something like this happened. Let's go back and listen to the judge and what she had to say on Jarvis Butts.
The case regarding a trial, and the one thing I had highlighted in pink is the quote: in this case, there was no physical evidence such as bloodstains or a weapon leading defendant to Joyce's death. In this case, we don't have the same facts or circumstances. I do agree this is a circumstantial case, and circumstantial evidence is sufficient for a bind over and even
circumstantial
conviction.
Evidence is evidence.
Today is January 9th, 2025, exactly 1 year, for the day Neziah Harris disappeared. Before I get into the charges, and the main charge of premeditated first-degree murder, I have to speak on Neziah Harris and the community who failed her. And I am only presented with certain evidence. I don't know the whole story. The attorneys know more than me, the family knows more than me, but from what I have heard over the last 4 days and 5 days total, is that several people failed her. I don't know where her mother is. I don't know anything other than that she was forced to live in a home where she was not protected or given the adequate attention and love. I don't know where her father is. I don't have any mention of him in her life, no presence. To Cordell, AKA King, and all the men who saw Jarvis Butts hanging out and always around these young girls, including Neziah, and his 9-year-old daughter going up to the shop to clean up his shop. The school counselor who never showed up, or the person who was supposed to show up if that counselor was absent, after Neziah was on the floor on the day she went missing, saying that she needed to speak to someone and speak to a counselor. There's no mention of CPS, but I wonder what their involvement was over the years, because this was not just a 1-year thing. There are text messages at least from 2022. To her adoptive grandmother, Annette Harris, whose testimony, in my opinion, was very questionable. I understand why the people put her on the stand to establish Neziah's residence and the houses on Bedford and the regular routine, to establish also that Neziah was not a runaway child, that she was not a bad kid. I do believe she adopted Neziah. I do believe that she had 6 kids in the house. I believe that Neziah had on a dark hoodie the day she went missing, and that she had on red and black Nikes that day. What is hard to believe is that the defendant never came into the house as she testified. And there was also a minor that testified that he did as well. Text messages that show between him and Neziah that he did in the basement, saying he was going to the shower, stealing her panties. He was always lurking around that house and asking for Janiyah and Zaniyah, from what I know. I even thought about the breakfast routine and saying that all the kids like eating breakfast at school. Did they have a choice? I don't know. But to always send those girls up there to clean up the shop raises questions. And how were there two women in that house who had birthed children themselves who did not notice that Neziah was pregnant, and I believe she was, and not having her period anymore? But then after hearing text messages today, begging Jarvis for pads as if she didn't have anyone else to give her. And what stood out the most was when Annette Harris stood on the stand, and she learned around 6 p.m. that Neziah did not come home from school, and said she looked around for her and decided to wait until the next morning to call the police.
She did nothing. These people were, I'm gonna let the judge talk.
Without a tear, without emotion, or any expression of being devastated.
Crazy.
And to her Aunt Shannon, who also showed no emotion, expression of being devastated from Neziah going missing. She stated that she had friends help look for Neziah, but was directed to just wait until the morning to call the police.
Exactly.
A grown woman who likely suspected something strange going on didn't feel the need to call the police either. They were both able to go to sleep at night without hearing from Neziah or having any indication that she was coming home that night.
Did y'all hear this? Again, if you haven't been following this case closely, the people who were closest to her, they waited until the next day to try and figure out where she was. Shh. They didn't call the police. They're like, we'll just sleep on it.
And of course, the defendant, who I will get to in a minute. I don't know who else failed Neziah, but the community did. As far as the people establishing probable cause, I will focus on count 1, as it's been stated that there is no contention with counts 2 and 3. In count 3, I will amend based off of the motion and the testimony. I heard that Neziah was 12 and not 13 at the time that Jarvis Butts had sexual intercourse with her. The prosecution is correct. You do not have to have a body to establish first-degree premeditated murder. It would have been a much shorter exam had her body been found, but this is where we are. In the last 365 days, no text messages. We all heard today and yesterday that she was very active and frequently texted. No social media for a year. We heard through testimony that she was also active on social media. No phone calls, which she was also able to do according to testimony. No physical sighting of her by anyone. She never came back to school. No one has seen her. Medical records dated from July 2014 to October 2023 indicated that she had no life-threatening medical issues that would lead to a natural cause of death. The black hoodie found in the area of 7 Mile Bird with her DNA and blood on it. The holes in the hoodie consistent with some sort of struggle, violence, or weapon being used. And we know that there were no holes in that hoodie when she wore it to school. We saw a picture of her in a black hoodie on her last day that everyone saw her. I do believe her grandma testified truthfully about the sweatshirt that she had on and that was practically new. And the border agent who said that no evidence of animals would have destroyed the clothing or the shoes to possibly lead to animals tearing up that hoodie. The clear glasses found in the blue Nissan the day after she went missing. The behavior of the defendant when he snatched those glasses. They looked exactly like the glasses she had on in her last picture, according to the witness. The shoes that her brother described as the same shoes that were found also in the area of 7 Mile Bird near the hoodie. While this is still probable cause, the evidence all points to Jarvis Butts. His locations, him being seen with her last, the abortion searches, the abrupt silence between the two of them in text messages, and the constant lies he told throughout the entire investigation. And they were proven to be lies with text messages and other testimony. We may never know what happened, but from what I heard today and over the last 4 or 5 days, it appears he intended to perform what he thought was a do-it-yourself abortion on Neziah and went south, and instead of seeking medical attention for her, he intentionally killed her and tried his best to cover it up. As much as I want her to be alive today, there is at least probable cause to show and believe that she's dead and that she was murdered by Jarvis Butts.
Yep, and he confessed to it.
Mr. Butts, stand up. You've been sitting over there for 4 days with your head down, sitting between and behind your attorneys with your mask on and taking vigorous notes. I want you to pay attention and listen to everything I have to say.
You're a monster.
I have been trying to figure out for the last 5 days, you. At one point, I thought you were cognitively impaired in the beginning of this exam. And then maybe you had the brain of a 10-year-old, and that's why you were doing such things. But as I heard more and more testimony, you were just the true definition of a pedophile.
Dang.
Watching you laugh and brag about all the women you have with different women and the children and the girlfriends, and making babies to groom them, and having them in your presence, cleaning up your shop, and the little girls around you, had landed you here today. You groomed Isaiah. You played mind games with her. We all heard that. You controlled her emotionally. She was exposed to so much at such a young age. The text messages between you two were disgusting to hear.
They were bad,
and
guys.
to think that she had you saved in her phone as bae for life. Isaiah deserved so much more. And while I mentioned other people that failed her, Jarvis Butts, you were the monster in this whole picture.
Yep.
She did deserve love from her parents and everyone who was in her life. She was ignored, she was neglected, and you took complete advantage of that. She wanted someone to love her, and she will never know what that feels like. Your children deserve more. As much as the defense counsel has raised issues on count one, all that has done is raise the question of fact for the trier of fact, which means that this will be for a jury or a judge to hear in the Third Circuit. I pray for the healing of all the victims and the young girls and possibly boys who have come into contact with you. As a community, we should look at this case as a prime example of how much work we have to do when it comes to protecting our children and especially our Black girls.
Yeah, amen. Shout out to that judge. So well said, so well put. And now this man is gone. Jarvis Butts is gone off of the face of this earth, not sharing air with anybody else. And listen, I'm not going to say how I feel about this on the internet, but you know, I do believe in a such thing as karma. And maybe we see that here, maybe not. Either way, this man's no longer here, and it is what it is. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments in the chat. Truly a monster. He's gone. No one will have to worry about being harmed by him again. Whether he was able to get out in the 35 to 60 years he would have been serving, who knows? And hopefully, as the judge said, the children who are affected by this can heal, because there's still, Naziah was the one who lost her life, the only one who lost her life. There were still a lot of children who were affected by this. Let me know what you think in the comments in the chat. Thank y'all for being here, man. So much I want to say on this, but I'll leave that for off the air. Cuz I don't want to say that stuff on the internet in 4K. We're going to go ahead and move along to our next subject. Again, if all 7,000 of you could like the video, I would appreciate it. It would mean a lot. It's free, takes less than a second to do. So thank y'all so much. God is merciful. He prevented any more harm to come from him. I agree. I don't know. Yeah, we could have the debate on whether God allowed or God caused that to happen. I don't think we could ever truly know. But I think, gosh, I'm trying to think of how to say this in a tactful way. I think there is definitely, everything happens for a reason, and there's a reason Jarvis Butts is no longer here. Let's just leave it at that and get into our next topic. Yeah, I and again, with this Jarvis Butts situation, I told you guys when we covered his sentencing, he wasn't going to make it long, whether that was in prison or obviously in jail. In this instance, I didn't think he was going to make it a very long time in jail. So some would say he took the coward's way out. I'm not going to give an opinion on that. We'll have to wait and see what the evidence shows. And of course, we'll be reporting on it here. Let's go ahead and get to our next topic. We've got to turn our eyes to what's going on with the voting in California. We've been talking about Fulton County. We've been talking about Georgia. We've had so many guests on the show. Janelle King, the state election board member. We've had Senator Greg Dolezal. We've even had the president of Voter GA, Garland Favorito, on the show talking about what's going on with the voting here in Georgia, and specifically the 2020 election and election fraud. Now we're turning our eyes to California, and it looks like California is starting to get ahead of some of the fraud they've seen in their elections, and the sheriff there has absolutely had enough. He is in a battle with the Attorney General in California to try and get information about potential election fraud in a special election there in California. Let's go ahead and check it out. And then we're actually going to hear from the sheriff himself about what went down in California and why he's investigating what went on there. Check this out.
This is CBS LA at 4.
Right now at 4:30, claims of fraud during the 2025 election, the discrepancy now leading to an investigation.
Riverside County Sheriff and candidate for governor Chad Bianco is accusing State Attorney General Rob Bonta of interfering in an investigation into the 2025 special election.
As CBS LA's Zach Boetto reports, Bianco says there are discrepancies in the ballot count, but Bonta says the investigation undermines public confidence in state elections.
There's no public confidence in state
A
elections.
ballot count clash at the center of an investigation that Riverside Sheriff Chad Bianco claims State Attorney General Rob Bonta is interfering in.
This investigation is simple. Physically count the ballots and compare that result with the total votes reported.
Sound familiar, guys? Sound familiar of what we've been hearing over the last week, what we've been talking about to Senator Dolezal, Janelle King, Garland Favorito, and many others? Just hand count them.
Physically count the ballots and compare that result with the total votes reported.
In question, the 2025 special election for Prop 50 regarding redistricting lines. A group of citizens, according to the sheriff, discovered the registrar of voters hand-counted just over 611,000 ballots. But 45,000 more votes were actually reported and certified to the Secretary of State, prompting the sheriff to start his own investigation. AG Bonta in a statement saying the investigation, quote, sets a dangerous precedent and will only sow distrust in our elections.
That is absolutely ridiculous. What does sow mistrust in our system is failing to conduct an investigation.
AG Bonta's team sent us these 3 letters showing Bonta's attempts to reach out to Bianco. The letter from February 26th shows the AG requesting copies of the court documents and asking the sheriff to pause the investigation to better understand the basis for the search. But the sheriff calling this request to pause interference.
The outrage that an investigation was happening was extremely concerning to me.
In a statement, AG Bonta says, quote, Sheriff Bianco's investigation is unprecedented in both scope and scale and appears not to be based on facts or evidence, but on unfounded allegations that have already been refuted by the Riverside Registrar of Voters. After getting the ballots through a warrant, Thursday, a judge ruling Bianco's department must pause the recount it's already started and restart with a special master watching over. While the recount won't count toward the election results for Prop 50, which passed in Riverside County with 56.3% of the vote, the Riverside County Registrar of Voters saying it will continue to comply with all lawful court orders and with all legal obligations applicable to election materials and election administration.
There is no acceptable error, small or large, in our election.
Bonta says his office will take further action as necessary. In Riverside, Zach Boetto, CBS LA.
So again, guys, it's not just here in Georgia, it's nationwide. And I've been saying this, and we're finally getting to see some of the other states that even the Attorney General Pam Bondi was considering going after and suing because they don't want to give information when it comes to these elections. It's not just Georgia, it's not just Fulton County, and the sheriff there in California has had enough. Let's check out this article and then we'll go on to hear from the sheriff himself. It says California court denies the appeal to stop Riverside County Sheriff's election fraud investigation. A California court denied the state attorney general's appeal to halt the Riverside County Sheriff's election fraud investigation on Tuesday. In a statement, California Attorney General Rob Bonta's office said the appellate court denied their request based solely on where we filed the case, and is not a ruling on the underlying of the petition. Basically meaning they got to file it somewhere else, but the facts may be well founded. So the investigation is going to continue until they get this right. The facts have not changed. The Riverside County continues to directly defy the Attorney General's instructions. The Attorney General believes he can instruct the sheriff on which investigations he could do, and in violation of the California Constitution and state law. Bonta's office wrote, "We are evaluating next steps to ensure a swift and appropriate resolution to the matter." Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco, who is running for governor, seized more than 611,000 ballots from the Prop 50 special election in which voters approved a redistricting measure that shifted 5 of California's Republican U.S. House seats to be more favorable to Democrats in the midterm election this year. Interesting move. Prop 50 passed in Riverside County with more than 56% of the vote, according to the Associated Press. The ballots in favor of the new congressional map surpassed those against by about 82,000 votes. Bianco claimed, hopefully I'm saying his name right, Bianco claimed his agency was investigating a complaint from a local group alleging a possible discrepancy in which about 45,000 more votes were reported to California's Secretary of State. And we've all seen the issues between the Secretary of State and their investigation into recounts and auditing. He described the probe as a fact-finding mission. This investigation is simple. Physically count the ballots and compare the results with the total votes reported, he said during a press conference last Friday, which we're going to get into. Secretary of State Shirley Weber, hopefully I said that right, said the allegations of discrepancies lack credible evidence and risk undermining public confidence in our elections. Guys, there is no confidence in elections. I really haven't heard anyone say, hey, how elections are run is fine. We've done the research and we've looked to how these ballots are counted, how everything's tabulated, and we feel really good about it. I have not heard that yet. The only thing I've heard from the opposition is, oh, well, this is going to be a hindrance. It's going to make voting more difficult. But I have not heard anyone say that they have confidence in how voting is done in our state, in our nation, and even in our county. The fact remains that he and his deputies are not elected officials or election officials, and they do not have the expertise in election administration, Weber said in a statement. Investigations into the election process must be conducted by those with the appropriate legal authority and subject matter expertise. Similar claims raised in other states by individuals without election administration experience have been thoroughly reviewed and debunked. County election officials also disputed Bianco's claim, saying the machine count and the final count submitted to the state differed by about 100 votes, which isn't bad. The Riverside County Registrar of Voters said it will continue to comply with all lawful court orders and with all legal obligations applicable to election materials and election administration. I hope we can all agree there is no acceptable error, small or large, in our elections, let alone a $45,000 vote difference, Bianco said. And we even heard that from Senator Greg Dolezal. He said the same thing. We want the number to be zero. The number should be zero. Why are we accepting that there is any error, especially clerical errors that we've been talking about? Let's actually get into the press conference and hear from the sheriff himself on this entire subject. This man is ready to fight for this, and I appreciate the work he's doing into this investigation.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Chad Bianco, Riverside County Sheriff. Thank you all for coming this morning. This press conference was called for 3 reasons. Inform the public of this investigation into the 2025 special election based on information received from the group of citizen volunteers who performed an audit based on public records from the ROV. Number 2, discuss interference in this investigation by Attorney General Rob Bonta. And number 3, assure Riverside County residents that we are committed to ensuring our elections are secure, safe, and accurate.
Good for him.
In October of 2022, investigators from the Riverside County Sheriff's Office began an investigation into possible election fraud. This investigation is ongoing. On February 9th, 2026, as a result of this investigation, the Riverside County Sheriff's Office served the Registrar of Voters with a warrant approved and signed by a judge for election materials related to the 2025 special election. This investigation is very simple. The Registrar of Voters maintained handwritten logs of the total number of ballots coming into the ROV. An audit of those logs received from the Riverside County Registrar of Voters allegedly shows 611,428 ballots were cast, but 657,322 votes were reported and certified to the Secretary of State. That is a difference of 45,896 votes. The response from the Registrar of Voters was that it did not rely on logs and that it is a machine count that reflects a much smaller deviation that he chalks up to acceptable human error.
Clerical errors.
I hope
guys.
we can all agree there is no acceptable error, small or large, in our elections, let alone a 45,000 vote difference. Our investigation will determine the validity of that alleged discrepancy, and if found true, we will determine the cause. We will do that by physically counting the ballots. This is not a recount to determine how many votes were for or against Prop 50. Several weeks ago, I was contacted by a representative of Attorney General Bonta and asked to halt this investigation until after March 6th.
He said no.
No reason was provided, and there is no legal justification for the Attorney General to stop a lawful investigation. As a side, I also had intimate knowledge of the significance of that date. On February 26th and again on March 4th, my office received a letter from AG Bonta directing a halt to this investigation. Yesterday, a Riverside Superior Court judge issued an order to appoint a special master to resume counting the ballots. Under direction of the court and the court's jurisdiction over all evidence, this investigation will continue despite AG Bonta's attempts to stop it. AG Bonta is part of the executive branch of this state. Under the separation of powers principle, AG Bonta does not have authority over the court or evidence, and I will carry out my constitutional duty to pursue justice impartially.
Good for him.
A recent study by UC San Diego revealed that 40% of Californians do not trust our election process or our counting mechanism.
I'm sure the
This is
number's higher
alarming.
right now.
The purpose of any investigation is to determine the merits of allegations. It is basically a fact-finding mission. This investigation is simple. Physically count the ballots and compare that result with the total votes reported. AG Bonta, in his direction, claims that an investigation into the elections sows mistrust in our system. That is absolutely ridiculous. What does sow mistrust in our system is failing to conduct an investigation, or worse, attempting to stop or interfere with a lawful investigation to sweep it under the rug so evidence can possibly be destroyed. My understanding is that election law calls for the destruction of the ballots that we currently have for the 2025 election in May of 2026. It denies transparency and it fosters a sense of corruptness in our Attorney General. Another of his claims is that law enforcement officers are not qualified to count ballots. I cannot speak for him or for California DOJ, but I can assure you completely that my investigators definitely know how to count. It should be noted that at no time has AG Bonta offered assistance in determining the validity of the complaint to quell concerns from the public or the task force. Additionally, neither AG Bonta nor our Secretary of State, Shirley Weber, ever showed concern or questioned a 45,000 vote discrepancy. Instead, they expressed outrage and attempted intimidation to prevent this investigation from happening. Why? Your Riverside County Sheriff's Office, your District Attorney's Office, and 4 out of 5 of your elected Board of Supervisors are committed to a thorough, impartial, and ethical investigation to confirm whether election results are accurate. I want to emphasize the purpose of this investigation is just as much to prove the election is accurate as it is to show otherwise. We will not know until the count is complete. If the numbers match, we have done our due diligence to ensure the trust and confidence in our Riverside County elections. If they do not, we will determine the cause. Any questions?
Good for him.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Alicia Ramirez with the Riverside Record. Do you have a date when that count will be completed? And has that search warrant been filed with the court?
They have. The search warrants have all been filed with the court. The search warrants are all sealed, and we do not have a current date. We are currently working with the court in determining the special master, and we will coordinate with them for the count.
Has the count started yet?
The count technically started and was stopped, and now it actually will not resume. It will restart under the supervision of the court.
And we just heard that as
So it
well.
will start over.
Can you tell us about the significance of this March 6th date?
Yeah, the conversation that I had with them was extremely vague and aloof, and wanting me to do a favor and pause this investigation until after March 6th.
That's crazy.
Unfortunately, in what I'm doing outside as the sheriff of Riverside County, I know that March 6th is the filing date for another Democrat to run against him in his next election for Attorney General.
Crazy, guys. Right in our faces.
Yes, sir.
Going England and Ireland weekly, the Registrar of Nichols said part of that difference in the count was due to confidential and secret ballots. Do you also have those ballots that you will be counting alongside the others?
We have all of the information from the 2025 elections, and we will be making sure that everything coincides with the totals that are reported.
So you do have those confidential ballots in your position?
We have everything from the 2025 election.
So yes.
Is that here or is it over?
I'm not going to tell you where that is. We have the Riverside County Sheriff's Office has custody of all of the information. With exception, there is still some information, digital information that we are still getting from the Registrar of Voters that they just needed more time to get.
Wow.
You were saying that you're waiting for it to restart. Is that because you said you're waiting for a special master to be appointed? Or?
Yes. So the court directed yesterday a special master to oversee this count, and so now we will coordinate with the court finding a special master and then facilitating that count.
And forgive me, but at the beginning, I think you referenced like a date in 2022.
We originally started in investigations into potential or alleged election fraud in 2022.
And so do you think that there are other miscounts or potential besides the special election in 2025?
I will say that there have always been alleged discrepancies in the numbers. A lot of the problem is this state law that mandates the destruction of all of the records within 6 months.
Isn't that crazy, guys? We've heard something similar here in Georgia with records wanting to be destroyed by the Secretary of State. I mean, it's insane that this is happening multiple places all the time. We're not the only ones dealing with this. It's crazy to see they want to destroy these records so bad. We heard from Garland Favorito. He had to push and push and push for them not to do this. And thankfully, the FBI stepped in. Wow.
And can you tell us how that tip came in?
It was from a group of volunteers, a group of citizen volunteers who had Public Records Request Act, through the Public Records Request Act, received all of the logs and information from the Registrar of Voters, and then they did their own audit, if you will, of all of the numbers that the Registrar of Voters was reporting during their work, comparing that to the total number of votes reported to the Secretary of State, and that's where they came up with a $45,000 number difference.
Shout out to the people, man.
Bianco, I have a question about in Palm Springs. You mentioned that 4 out of the 5 supervisors are aware of this investigation and in support of it. Who is the one that isn't?
Yeah, the information that I have is from closed session Board of Supervisors. One of them has chosen to not care about the closed session meetings and has come out in the press. It should be easy for you to find out who.
And then second question, how will this investigation at all affect the sort of safeguards that will be put in place for the primary elections in June? I know that you're running for governor as well.
Yeah, so let me make this perfectly clear. I'm the sheriff of Riverside County. I couldn't care less what I'm doing in another election, and this has absolutely nothing to do with it. I have a duty to make sure we investigate crime in Riverside County, or alleged crime in Riverside County. So we will conduct this investigation as thoroughly as possible. I cannot guarantee you a date. I can't tell you it's going to be done by then. I can't tell you it's not going to be done by tomorrow. We're going to do everything we can to do it as expedient as possible, but we also have to be thorough and legal and make sure that whatever the outcome is really isn't questioned.
Hey, shout out to the sheriff for doing a great job there. We will be following everything that's happening with this investigation because, again, as I mentioned, we've been following everything that's happening with our elections here in Georgia, with the state elections board, with all of these Senate bills and these House bills coming out that affect elections here. So California is next on the list to be following. Let me know what you guys think in the comments in the chat. Hey, man, it's not just us, right? Crazy. Shout out to the sheriff for doing the great work over there. I had another article I wanted to get into, but I mean, we pretty much heard everything we need to hear from him. He's not backing down. He's not scared. He's not afraid or worried about the attorney general trying to stop this investigation. And until it gets to that point, he said, we gonna keep working. Shout out to the sheriff. Thank you to everybody. We got over 8,000, 9,000 of y'all in the building. If you guys could please like the video. I beg for likes here. Why do I beg for likes? Because it's free. It's free to like the video. It takes less than a second and it really does help us out a lot. So thank you to everyone who's liked the video so far. As we move into our next segment here, talking about and going back to the fraud right here in Georgia. And we're going to hear from Mark Cook. We got to get, and we're working on getting Mark Cook on the show because this guy is a wealth of knowledge about elections in general and how our current voting machines work and some of the vulnerabilities we've seen, especially with the Dominion machines and the Dominion software we're using here in Georgia. So let's go ahead and get into and talk about Mark Cook and what is going on with Mark Cook's investigation and research into everything that's happening here in Georgia with our elections and with these the Dominion software we've been using that we know for a fact is faulty. We talked about the 9 discrepancies that were found, the 9 issues that were found in this Dominion software. We haven't upgraded the software. And now we even got to talk with Garland Favorito about SB 214, which was supposed to help change and help make things easier with voting here and more accurate in Georgia, but it actually got changed and there was a substitute bill. And now they're actually saying, hey, you guys can go ahead and purchase another voting system. Not really solving the problem and ignoring the issues that we've seen here. So now we're going to hear from Mark Cook, and he's actually going to talk about what he's found in his analysis of how these machines work and the discrepancies he's seen, as we've heard him talk about in front of the state elections board. So let's go ahead and get into this video, and then we'll also get to hear what went down at this meeting he was at in front of the Government of Affairs. Check this out.
Next on deck is going to be Brooke. I'm sorry, this is kind of Schreiner. Is that? Okay, great. Yeah, you'll be next on deck. Mr. Cook, I recognize you.
I appreciate it. My name is Mark Cook. I'm an election cybersecurity subject matter expert in threat assessment and common sense mitigation. I've been working on elections solid nonstop for about 6 years now. I have been working in the IT industry for 40 years. I have intrinsic knowledge that would be really important for people to understand. I have evidence right here that I was hoping to show you that can show there are absolutely, I know you guys have heard this, but I've got the proof right here, backdoors built in to electronic voting systems that allow flipping, changing of votes, infiltrating the system, all built in, set up in a way that makes it easy and untraceable. I can demonstrate this to you even while I'm still here in this building. I'm happy to do so. The testing labs all miss this. Then they're blindly certified, and then we're told, it's shoved down our throats that everything is safe and secure. It's absolutely not. We're being lied to from the very top. The whole thing is built on a pyramid of lies, and we have to stop living these lies. I will educate you. I can show you guys the problems. No issue. I'm happy to do so. But we have to approach this in a common sense form here. We have to be smart about what we're doing. If we're going to make a change, we need to make a change that's actually going to solve the problem and not kick the can down the road. And again, take the control of elections away from where elections belong, which is in the people's hands. And this is not complicated to solve. We're literally filling dots out on paper. We're counting the dots, adding the dots up, and whoever has the most dots wins. That's the entire scope of our elections. So having to use computerized systems to count dots and add the dots up is the most ridiculous waste of money and theft of the very essence of us being American citizens and having a voice that I've ever seen in my life. So thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mr. Cook. And if I may, the members of the committee, I'd recommend that maybe if you could send it out, whatever evidence that you have.
I'm happy to. And I'm here for today and tomorrow. I'm happy to sit down with anyone and show you firsthand so you can see with your own eyes.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
All right. So shout out to Mr. Cook putting in the work, because we're actually going to hear some of the issues he had. And something that happened during this actual meeting. Thankfully, they got things updated, but he had this to say over on X as he was at the governmental affairs meeting. He says, Georgia House Governmental Affairs censored my Dominion backdoor public testimony. 10 seconds sliced out mid-sentence. That's the exact part exposing the truth they wanted hidden. Timestamps prove it. Everyone in the room heard it on record. So I recovered the full audio. Watch and listen to what someone doesn't want to be on notice of. Who ordered the cut? Georgians, in fact, all citizens, make sure everyone sees this post. So now he's going to play the video and show where it was cut.
Mr. Cook, I recognize you.
I appreciate it. My name is Mark Cook. I'm an election cybersecurity subject matter expert in threat assessment and common sense mitigation. I've been working on elections solid nonstop for about 6 years now. I have been working in the IT industry for 40 years. I have intrinsic knowledge that would be really important for people to understand. I have evidence right here that I was hoping to show you that can show there are absolutely, I know you guys have heard this, but I've got the proof right here, backdoors built in to electronic voting systems that allow flipping, changing of votes. So the testing labs.
Uh-oh.
Wow. I can't believe they did that. Did you hear that? Watch it again and pay attention to the time in the upper right corner.
That allow flipping, changing of votes. So the testing labs.
Can you believe that? So much for government transparency, I guess. Well, how about we just put that audio right back where they clipped it out so everyone can hear it.
Now, after he made this video, they actually uploaded and quote unquote fixed what was going on. He's going to show some more receipts on that too.
Enjoy.
That allow flipping, changing of votes, infiltrating the system, all built in, set up in a way that makes it easy and untraceable. I can demonstrate this to you even while I'm still here in this building. I'm happy to do so. The testing labs all miss this. Then they're blindly certified. And then we're told, it's shoved down our throats that everything is safe and secure. It's absolutely not. We're being lied to from the very top. The whole thing is built on a pyramid of lies, and we have to stop living these lies. I will educate you. I can show you guys the problems. No issue. I'm happy to do so. But we have to approach this in a common sense form here. We have to be smart about what we're doing. If we're going to make a change, we need to make a change that's actually going to solve the problem and not kick the can down the road. And again, take the control of elections away from where elections belong, which is in the people's hands. And this is not complicated to solve. We're literally filling dots out on paper. We're counting the dots, adding the dots up, and whoever has the most dots wins. That's the entire scope of our elections. So having to use computerized systems to count dots and add the dots up is the most ridiculous waste of money and theft of the very essence of us being American citizens and having a voice that I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, and Garland Favorito talked about this as well. It's calling some of the bills being introduced vendor bills because it's not needed. Let the people do it. You can have people who are trained, well-trained, and able to count and still be 100% accurate. And Mark has even held sessions where he showed people how to hand count everything. So it's 1000% right. And these machines aren't needed, especially when they're vulnerable in so many instances and situations, and we're allowing them to still be used in our elections knowingly is insane to me.
So thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mr. Cook. And if I may, the members of the committee, I'd recommend that maybe if you could send it out, whatever evidence that you have.
I'm happy to. And I'm here for today and tomorrow. I'm happy to sit down with anyone and show you firsthand so you can see with your own eyes.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Infiltrating the system, all built in, set up in a way that makes it easy and untraceable. I can demonstrate this to you even while I'm still here in this building. I'm happy to do so. Infiltrating the system, all built in, set up in a way that makes it easy and untraceable. I can demonstrate this to you even while I'm still here in this building. I'm happy to do so.
So, citizens, what do we do now? The powers that be, the government, the corporations, decided they wanted to take over our elections so they could have control over all of us. Yeah, Democrats and Republicans. We, the people, though, are the ones getting screwed. While they play their little games and have us fighting with each other. So when are we done? I'd say it's getting pretty close.
All right, so let's actually go into another breakdown and get to this other breakdown here from Mark, where he actually goes into the details of what he found in these systems and what happened behind the scenes with the working of Dominion, because this gets interesting as well.
Hello. Thanks for sharing this like crazy. This has been fantastic. I've had such a hard time getting my message out over these years, and this is just unbelievable. I mean, I can't believe, I looked at this morning, 1 million views.
Hey, congratulations.
I don't think I've ever had over maybe 100,000 views. This is insane. But anyway, let me make a little comment about this because I found out a little bit more information today. So I've heard some chatter this morning about this possibly being a glitch. Okay, like a streaming glitch. And I've kind of had it with the glitches, especially election glitches, too many of them. But I wanted to set out to find out, could this be a streaming glitch? Although we shouldn't have glitches in streaming for anything going on in our government, especially when the citizens rely on that information and those live streams and recordings, which that what turned into is live stream turned into recording. We have to rely on those for oversight. And it's really kind of a problem if they're glitching and we're losing parts of very important testimony. That's kind of an issue. So whether it was an accidental glitch or intentional glitch, I don't know. I hope it wasn't intentional. But nonetheless, even if it was accidental, I'm still going to blame it on someone. And I know who it was. It was that guy, possibly. So if God grabbed a few of those packets and created a 10-second glitch that got us focusing on really critical testimony of, what's black and white, I've got the proof of, I've been demonstrating for years. I'm happy to show anyone this, and it's easy to reproduce. In fact, anyone that probably has a Dominion EMS can look at it themselves. And that is backdoors built into the voting system. SQL Server Management Studio that lets you bypass the Dominion application software and go directly into the back end of the database to make whatever changes you'd want. Doesn't even require a secondary password to get into it, which is insane. And transaction logging is disabled in the database in addition to that. And of course, it doesn't even log the users that log in as long as they have the right password. It doesn't keep track of it. I mean, just insanity how this stuff is set up. And that's just one backdoor. Then there's backdoor number 2. Then there's the internal web server. And then there's the file system that doesn't have the right permissions on it that allows, full access, and the firewall that's wide open, multiple ports from any IP address in the world. Crazy. I mean, just insanity stuff. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I did present all this to the state election board in Georgia, and God bless them. I will say this. I was very impressed with most everyone on that board. They gave me a platform to even bring this information out into the, Janelle, I guess, additional public. But to be able to talk about it and discuss it, the facts are the facts. It's right there. I mean, why on earth anyone wouldn't want to know this, and why on earth Dominion hasn't fixed this over all these years? I mean, I've literally been presenting this, even myself, I've been presenting this for 4 or 5 years now. And have they even fixed it yet? I mean, I know they released at least one version that they hadn't fixed it, and I haven't been able to investigate the others. But if anyone wants me to take a look at yours, I'm more than happy to do so. And I'm also more than happy to instruct you on how to do so, because ultimately there should be no secrets here. And if any voting system vendor says, no, you can't look inside our system, then I would boot that system right the heck out of your county and out of your state, because no one should be blocking anyone from seeing what's under the hood on something that's supposed to go 1 + 1 + 1 + 1. I mean, come on. The people blocking access to something that should not be blocked are very suspect in themselves, right? It's just even act, right? Okay. So the content is absolutely important, and it's critical, and it's accurate, and it's reproducible. And I'm going to bring my state election board presentation, which was very quick. It was only 10 minutes long. But I went over and I think I flipped votes in the election right in front of the entire Georgia State Election Board in a matter of a few minutes. 3 times over, right in front of their eyes. And I'll take that footage, and I'm gonna fix it a little bit with some other camera angles and some camera views, because the one that was put out in public was only my screen, And that's not really helpful if you're not seeing me at the same time and seeing that I'm not even touching the keyboard when some of the manipulation is occurring. So I'm going to put that together for you here soon. But anyway, here's some other thing I noticed in all of this. Check this out. So this right here is the meeting agenda. And if you notice, you scroll down a little bit and look at that meeting agenda, 1 o'clock, right? That's when the meeting was supposed to start. And that's when it did start. However, here's another little problem I found. Check this out. Right here. Here is the video that was put out there. Now I'm going to hit play. I started in a little bit because there was just some dead time and nothing changed on this screen. But watch what happens. Watch like right here when I hit play. Here we go. Now notice the time will show up here. It's right here. Okay, see the time. Now watch. The time is going to move. Okay, so this is done manually. That was a human moving that time. Now also notice this. That time's not right. That time says 12:03 p.m., but it's an hour off. That's a problem because you remember that meeting started right here, 1 p.m. Well, if you notice right here, if we get into it just a little bit, we start a little bit late. There we go. 12:06 right there, right? So 12:06 p.m., it's not really 12:06 p.m. It's actually 1:06 p.m. So here's a problem. The time on the citizen oversight system, right? These expensive cameras and expensive live stream that we all pay for. I'm sure we're paying for out of our tax dollars. Well, maybe not me out in Colorado, but I guarantee you Georgians are paying for it. So if you're paying for this system, how is it that your government can't even set the time right? How is it your government can't even, if it is a glitch, a live streaming glitch that, caused by lack of internet connectivity for a brief second, how is that happening at the Capitol? Like how is that? I have heard from other people that this is a common thing in Georgia where bits and pieces of live stream and recorded testimony is gone now.
Yeah, and it's the systems here. They need to upgrade the systems. That's getting away from what we're talking about with the voting. But you guys even saw we struggled to get the last state election board live stream up, and we struggled to actually view that because of the way everything was formatted. So they need a complete overhaul this system. But again, Mark is pointing out a lot of issues here. I want to know what you guys think about this in the comments in the chat. And he's even going to continue on at a later time to reveal what he found and the discrepancies he found in the system. Shocking stuff. It's embarrassing, to be honest, and why we continue to go down this path, I don't know, but we're going to be doing the work and still having the conversation. So maybe we can make some improvements here in Fulton County, in Georgia, and across the nation. Let me know what you guys think. Thank y'all for the love, man. Shout out to everybody who's in here. When are I see y'all talking about the shenanigans? When are the shenanigans going to start? The volume is low? Really? Which volume is low? I'll have to double check it. Hold on a second. Let me see. Said the volume was low on Mark's video. Double check it. Hold on a second.
Any voting system vendor says, no, you can't look inside our system, then I would be very suspect. Absolutely civil. 10 minutes. Georgia, I will, and that is occurring. Check this out. And look at that. There's another dead. That's in get in 6. So here's the system out of our tax. So if how is it your lack of internet connectivity? This is getting a
last state election board. Yeah, I don't know. Y'all tripping. But hey, shout out to the low volume gang. I don't know what y'all got going on over there. Thank you, Cynthia. I appreciate the love. We got a lot more topics to get into, so let's keep it going. I'm gonna try and get as much of this in here as I can. Oh, we've got to do this part because we might have a verdict here. Shout out to Mr. Brown. Yeah, y'all said no volume issues. Okay, good. Let's get into this next one. I'm actually gonna do a little bit of skipping around. We were going to get into one story we were following up on, but we have to get into this Kelsey Fitzsimmons trial, because we've got closing arguments today. So let's go ahead and hear the closing arguments in this case. We're going to get into the defense first, and then we'll hear from the prosecution in a second. If y'all haven't yet, please make sure you guys like the video. I'm going to keep begging until we're at 200% likes. We're over halfway there, so I shouldn't be greedy, but still, I know y'all can like the video. It takes less than a second to do, and you won't be disappointed. I promise. All right. Good afternoon to those of y'all just joining us. Let's go ahead and get into it. Let me double check. All right, we're going to get into the closing arguments for the Kelsey Fitzsimmons trial. First up, we've got the defense team, and they're going to argue, as they did during the course of this trial, that Kelsey was not attempting to shoot the police officer. She was attempting to end her own life. She waited multiple times for them to leave the room before she actually attempted to end her life with the gun that she had. So again, we're getting to the closing arguments. We'll hear from the defense and see what they have to say. In another video, we'll actually hear from the prosecution and what they believe happened and the inaccuracies of Kelsey's testimony. Check this out. Here we go.
May it please the court. Counsel, ladies and gentlemen. Your Honor, June 30th, 2025 was the worst day in Kelsey Fitzsimmons' life. Her whole world imploded.
I can't imagine.
Her fiance betrayed her. Her baby was being taken away. She was going to lose her house, her job. It was an incredible confluence of tragedy that was visited upon her that day. That day was about her, and she decided in the midst of what you saw testified to here, she decided to end her life. Patrick Noonan, when he came back up those stairs, Your Honor, walked into a suicide in progress. That gun was nowhere near him. That gun was already pointed at Miss Fitzsimmons' temple by Miss Fitzsimmons. She was a couple steps into the room. Officer Noonan, a gung-ho cop, highly trained, a SWAT guy.
That's the officer that shot.
He'd already been ginned up all afternoon by the insane, ludicrous statements of Justin Elaine. He had that in his head. He walked in, and like all of us are susceptible to, he made a mistake. He shot too quick. He reacted too quickly. And instantly, he realized that he had to adjust the narrative. And that was easy, to just add 6 words to the equation, Your Honor. He said, words to the effect, she pointed the gun at me. 6 words. What did those words do at that time period? Those words made him the victim. Those words made him the hero. And those words, most important, made him untouchable. Those words were a defense for his future, his life, his reputation, and they were conveyed to a very willing audience. His colleagues, his brothers, his family, the investigators on the case. So that's really what happened here, Your Honor, and it is a tragedy, and it is something that should not result in any further harm to Ms. Fitzsimmons. This should be over. This should be an acquittal, Your Honor. I want to talk to you about a few of the elements that I know you're going to be concerned about. So, first thing I want to talk about, Judge, is the lack of motive and the lack of intent. Because when it gets down to brass tacks, you know, I know that you're going to look at the law, you're going to look at the credibility determinations, and you're going to make your judgment. And here, this case fails the Commonwealth ship founders on the rocks of lack of motive and lack of intent. Let's talk about motive. Everything in life is motive, and it's ironic that, you know, us lawyers always say, oh, well, you don't need to prove motive, but you really kind of do. It's might not be an element of the crime, but motive is everything in this business, Your Honor. Let's look at the motive or lack of motive. Fitzsimmons and Noonan are colleagues. They have already bonded over shared tragedies, shared experiences. They were okay with each other. They were friends. Kelsey thought well of him, and she thought he thought well of her. She knows he has a family. She knows who his family is. She's not going to harm this guy. She knows, Your Honor, that he didn't do this to her. She knows that Justin Elaine did this to her. And she's probably most important, she's been in those shoes before, serving restraining orders. She knows she's just a messenger. She knows he's just a messenger. This was the worst moment of her life, and she wanted to end her life. And how did she want to do it? She wanted to do it alone. She didn't want to involve these officers because she knew this was a selfish act. She came in here, and ironically, the most credible evidence that came into this case, Your Honor, was from the one person that didn't have to testify. And she came in here and she chose to testify. And she waived her rights and she testified. And she showed, Your Honor, that she's a moral person. She's a caring person. You will sit down and you'll deliberate, and you'll be drawing the inevitable conclusion that Kelsey Fitzsimmons is a moral person. You have to contrast that with the callous treatment of this case from the other side. Hey, we're going to go serve an order on Kelsey Fitzsimmons. Her ex-fiancé got an order on her, on Kelsey. Let's go serve an order. The answer, sounds good. Let's go. Talks to his neighbor. Oh yeah, I'm the shooter. I'm the shooter. She's a whack job. So you have to take these credibility determinations into account. And I know you're a gentleman, but you have to get down to brass tacks on who's who here, Your Honor. What else shows you that she's a moral person? She doesn't want to involve these guys. She's trying to get rid of them. She says, oh, the guns are over here, so she can go where they really are. She keeps trying to give Houston and Noonan baby things to bring downstairs. She's trying to get rid of them. She's trying to get them away from her. She wants to do this on her own. She doesn't want to have some sort of a situation where she gets shot by one of her colleagues and friends. It's understandable because she's a moral person. She waits for her chance. She gets to her room. There's a distraction downstairs. She doesn't know what's going on because she's focused on the job she's trying to do here, the tragic, awful thing that she's trying to do to herself. That's how you know she's telling the truth, Your Honor. You saw in the room, and I'll show it to you in a minute, the chest that she got the gun from. It's a chest on the floor. It has one of those pretty substantial lids that you would have to flip up to get the gun, locate the gun, pick the gun out of the 4 guns, and stand up. If Noonan was standing right there in the door frame, that would have never happened. All those events, that little series of events, he would have been able to stop it. He would have stopped it. It tells you that he's down the steps. He was interested in the distraction downstairs. He saw Kelsey folding some baby clothes, getting baby things ready. His attention, it's human nature. His attention was drawn to go back down the stairs. He walked down the stairs 2 or 3 steps, 4 steps, whatever. And Kelsey told you, straight up, that was my chance. And she took it. And she went in the chest. Exhibit 51, Your Honor, I'll show you right now. She went in that chest, flipped up that lid, got the gun, stood up. She told you, again, she's a moral person. She tried to keep the gun concealed. She made the motion like this, Your Honor, where she put the gun like this, and she kind of walked over here because she didn't want the police to see her with a gun. She held the gun to her stomach area. She walked to a clear area, and she put the gun to her head. And that's what I mean when I say Officer Noonan came back up the stairs, and what did he walk into? He didn't walk into some Rambo woman trying to shoot him in the face. He walked into Kelsey, who you now know a little bit from her testimony. He walked into Kelsey's room, and Kelsey had a gun to her head. And he walked into a suicide in progress, Your Honor.
He's thinking, come on, man.
And the man that had just been holding her baby, that she chose to hold her baby, that she chose to feed her baby, walked into her suicide in progress. The gun was nowhere near Noonan. There was no threat to Noonan. And the law says that an officer may not use deadly force on someone who is exhibiting a danger only to themselves. And that's offered to Your Honor twofold.
Interesting.
In the sense that it shows that this was not a reasonable use of force, and it shows you that his knowledge of that statute, as he said on the stand, gives him a motive to lie. He knows that this is not a good shooting. He knows this is not a clean shooting. And that gives him a motive here, Your Honor. And like all of us, we all make mistakes. He overreacted and he shot. He had the look on his face, panic, flustered, he shot. He had made a mistake by leaving her there, walked down the steps, a few steps, and that gave her the chance. And when he did this, he knew immediately, Your Honor, that he had to adjust the narrative. Filtered through the legal lens, Your Honor, that tells us that Kelsey had no intent. She had no intent to harm Noonan. There's no assault here because she didn't have the intent to do so. As the fact finder, you can consider everything I said about motive, that she lacked any motive to harm this gentleman. In fact, it was the opposite. She thought well of him. She knew Justin did this to her. She had just trusted him with her baby, and she had tried several times to get these officers away from the situation. No intent to harm him, no motive driving her mindset to do so. Reasonable doubt, burden of proof, Your Honor. Where the evidence supports a reasonable and more plausible alternative, and that's shown here by Kelsey's testimony, it cannot be said that the Commonwealth has proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt. There is reasonable doubt. When there are two plausible versions of what happened, that itself is reasonable doubt. The versions themselves, Your Honor, show reasonable doubt. Kelsey's version rings true. Noonan's version is all over the place. Noonan's version is contradicted by the strong consensus of everybody else in the house. Noonan portrays a couple different stories, but if you want to pick one where it's this drawn-out potential gun battle, where she's backpedaling, sidestepping, tapping, racking, there's commands going on, that takes time. It takes time for me even to say it.
That's
Never
true.
mind do it. And that's belied by everything everybody else in the house says. Everyone else says, Kelsey, no, 2 shots in quick succession, bam, bam. That does not fit with what Noonan said happened. So on that alone, Your Honor, as a fact finder, I suggest that your duty is accomplished quickly, because there are two extremely divergent versions of this event. And Noonan's version has changed itself. Noonan's version is inconsistent with who you now know Kelsey is as a person.
It's fair.
It's self-serving. And like I said, it makes him untouchable. And when you judge it against everyone in the house, he's the only one with the Rambo story. Everyone else has what Kelsey says. He walks into a suicide in progress. He sees it. He reacts. Kelsey, no. Bam, bam. Brain freeze. Mistake. Has to cover it up immediately. What else do we have? You know, when you're a fact finder, Your Honor, you know, you want to look for corroboration. What's the corroboration on either side of this thing? Or lack of corroboration, which is what really it is here. You know, the big one, the big elephant in the room is that this department has no body cameras. We wouldn't even be here if they had body cameras. There's no evidence other than people's words. He said versus she said. That's oftentimes, almost all the time, not a good place to start for the Commonwealth.
I agree.
How many of these guys didn't do reports? What's up with that? Why didn't Trooper Strong put the body camera video on the witness he's interviewing?
Fair point.
There's no science. The testimony of everyone else in the House shatters his narrative. Kelsey Fitzsimmons has been blessed.
She's lucky.
She should be dead 2 times over.
Very lucky.
By her own hand and by the hand of Officer Noonan, who shot too quick. She's blessed. She's here today, and she has a new lease on life. And maybe that's why the investigation is what it is. And maybe that's why Noonan's story is so sloppy, because nobody expected her to be here today, to tell her truth. But she is, Your Honor. And as the fact finder, I want to respectfully ask you to consider the evidence, consider the lack of motive, the lack of intent, the inconsistencies. The credibility contest is firmly in her camp. She came in here and she told you what happened. Unvarnished truth. And I ask you to find her not guilty. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, so there it is. That is the defense giving their closing arguments. You guys think they're right so far? I will say this. I believe in Kelsey's testimony was one of the most credible testimonies I've seen from someone who is the defendant. I think she did a great job. I think she was telling the truth. So let me know what you guys think in the comments in the chat. We've got our honorable attorney Kel Bell is in here. Says, is this a bench trial, no jury? It is. It is, and we're going to get into the closing arguments from the prosecution or the Commonwealth here in a second. So it'll be interesting to hear what they say. Let's go ahead and get into that. Thank y'all for being here. Thank you to everybody who's liked the video. We're going to go ahead and get into it. Now that we've heard the closing arguments from the defense, we'll go ahead and get into the closing arguments from the Commonwealth. They're not buying Kelsey's story. Kelsey Fitzsimmons is saying Kelsey Fitzsimmons is a liar, and she's shown that several times throughout the trial. Let's go ahead and get into it. Check this out.
Yeah.
In this case.
Here we go.
I mean,
Yes.
every piece of credible evidence in this case proves one thing, that she's guilty. All the testimony, the scientific evidence, the physical evidence, the demonstrative evidence, everything points to one conclusion: she is guilty. Even her own testimony proves she's guilty, because it's impossible to have happened the way she said it. It is scientifically, mechanically impossible for it to happen the way she said it. Her story is that she grabbed a gun, put it to her head, pulled the trigger, and it clicked. The chamber was empty. That's what her story is. And that's what Officer Noonan's story is, too. She pulled the trigger, click, nothing came up. There wasn't a round in the chamber. She even said she told everybody how stupid I am. I tried to kill myself with an empty gun. But what do we know about the guns? What do we know about her gun? Because after she went to the floor, Lieutenant Davey picked it up,
put it on the bed. Officer Noonan picked it up and put it on the table. And then Officer Kaur came in the room. And what happened then? Officer Noonan said, secure that gun, make it safe. And so what did he do? He took the gun, he found that black box, the safe. He made sure that was empty, he turned it over. He pulled out the magazine that you can see right here. He opened the chamber, and there was a round in the chamber. He dumped it out into this safe and put the firearm in there. And then they stood watch on that until State Trooper Bonasara took it back in the lab. That magazine that you have in evidence contained 16 rounds. It was a 17-round capacity gun. It contained 16 rounds, plus the one that was in the chamber.
She got lucky. 17
rounds. As we know, there are only 2 ways to get a bullet into the chamber. One is if there's already a bullet in the chamber, someone pulls the trigger, a bullet comes out, the casing comes out, the chamber's open, the spring allows another bullet to come out. That's one way, and we know that didn't happen here. The gun didn't fire because the chamber was empty. The only way a bullet gets in this chamber, other than that way, is if someone racks the gun. She said she didn't rack the gun, but there was a bullet in the chamber. She did rack the gun. What did Officer Noonan say? She pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. She stepped back, tap-racked, tried again, didn't do it, tap-racked again, pulled it, and that's when he fired. She put a round in that chamber. That's the only way it got there. Her story can't be true. She got up on that stand and she lied to you. It's scientifically and physically impossible for her story to have happened the way she said it.
I disagree.
That's what the evidence shows. But she didn't just lie to you then. She lied again. She lied at the scene about where the guns were. And she admitted that, and I understand that, right? And she said she lied to the police because she decided to kill herself. But when did she say she said that? They had been to the house. They had talked to her, according to her. She now started contemplating all of the ramifications of what's going to happen to her. Because she's losing her life, her job, her son is being taken away, all of these things. And so she's going that over her head. And then minutes later, as she's walking through the house, she says, my gun's in the basement. Because that's the time she made the decision to kill herself. Later on. And we know that's a lie. We know that's a lie because what was one of the first things they asked her when they went to that house? They asked her to put the baby down because they were concerned for the baby, told her the restraining order, what the parameters were, and asked where your guns are. When she was still sitting on the sofa. They weren't waiting to ask that question until she was already walking around the house. No way. And what did she say there? They're in the basement. And we know she said it there before she moved around the house, which is untrue, because her friend, Officer Houston, who was invited to her wedding, says it also. He says, Sergeant Daly asked. And then remember what he said? He said, I was in the living room, she was sitting down, and then I saw a gun case on the other sofa, and so I opened it up to see. And she said again, I already told you the guns are in the basement. Now, why at that point did she say that? We don't know. She didn't tell us, because she lied to us about why she said it later, because we know she didn't say it later. So she lied again. You can't trust her. She also lied about knowing that her mom was in the house. She was upstairs. The officer, Noonan, I think it was, Noonan heard an older woman's voice down there and said, who is that? She says, I have no idea. She doesn't know her own mother's voice, her best friend that she just talked to come to the house. And she said she didn't know whose voice it was. Another lie. She said on the stand yesterday that she didn't know Justin was in the house. And we know that's a lie too, because what happened when the 3 of them were upstairs? It's Noonan, it's Houston, and it's the defendant. She hears him downstairs. Houston hears him downstairs, and she says, keep him away from me. I don't want him in my house, or something to that effect. And that's when Houston went down to make sure he wasn't coming up and went to the basement. She knew he was in the house. She absolutely did, and she lied to you when she said she didn't yesterday. And you know what else she lied about? Something so simple, but it shows who she is. The restraining order. She said, the restraining order was taking my dog away. It says it. It doesn't say that. Nothing about the dog in there. I could go on about the lies, but I want to talk about the credible evidence. The credible evidence in this case. When Lieutenant Daly got a call, actually got a visit from Justin Olaine when he was in the lobby of the PD. And Justin told him he got a 209A against Kelsey Fitzgerald. And Detective Daly knew that she had been sectioned before, that she had guns, that they were taking the child away from her for a period of time. And so what did he do? He called Officer Houston. He asked Houston to call Daly to meet up. And why did he say he did that? He said because those two are cool, calm, and collected. They don't panic. They keep things calm. That's what he said. And that's why when he called Houston, he said, can you call Daly, we got to do this. And so he wants you to believe, defense counsel, that Pat Newman was cavalier about, oh, okay, sounds good, we have to serve a restraining order. But that's not what happened. He was mischaracterizing it, I hope you remember, in the grand jury minutes, because Houston had called Pat and said, hey, we got to serve an order, can you meet me by the school? And Pat said, sounds good. It wasn't until he got over there, it wasn't until Lieutenant Daly was there that they learned really what they were going to do. And they went over there. And defense counsel asked Daly, you guys were cavalier about it, you knew her, weren't worried about the guns, all this stuff. And Lieutenant Daly said, no. No. His quote was, we had an increased level of diligence. Everyone was more on point because they did know what they were walking into. They did know. They did know that she had been sectioned before. They did know there was going to be a baby in the house. They did know that she had guns. They did know at that point that she had parked her car far away. This is all going to what they were thinking at that point. They did know all those things. And they did know Justin's concerns. He said, according to Lieutenant Daly, I'm worried she's going to kill the baby, kill herself, and kill someone else. So that's what they were thinking when they went into this house. That's the credible evidence when they went in there. And what did they do when they went in there? They sat her down, and they allowed her, or maybe they asked her, I can't remember, to go around and get some stuff for the baby because she knew Justin was coming to get the baby. And they were in her pocket the whole time. They followed her around the house, at least two of them, while she did that. And you know that because even Officer Houston said, I was in her pocket. And we went into the kitchen, and I noticed there were butcher blocks with knives on it. With knives in it. And they were concerned. There was no chance they were leaving her alone. No chance they were leaving her alone. Officer Newman. Officer Newman. All of the testimony that you've heard about Officer Newman, even from the defendant, he's a gentleman, he's experienced, he is by the book, and his training and experience starting in the military,
maybe until now,
through Security Forces School, Security Forces Squadron, with all the training he had, and Humvees and helicopters, and training he had, and Humvees and helicopters, and the SWAT team, 2 times a month training, clearing rooms, clearing buildings, hostage situations, missing persons, no-shoot scenarios, twice a month, and a 40-hour block every year. For over a decade he did that. And he moved to Lawrence, as far as the department goes, because it was busier, and he had more experience. He was cool, calm, and collected. There's no doubt about that. And to say when they're upstairs and he walks away and leaves her alone because he heard a commotion that Officer Houston was going to attend to, is a joke. It really is. Now, how do you know they were going by the book at that point? And how do you know they were vigilant? Because they followed around everywhere. Because both Houston and Officer Noonan said she kept handing us things, and we kept putting them down. We wanted our hands free. Because they were ready for whatever happened. Hoping nothing did, but ready for whatever happened. So at some point, Houston and Noonan are upstairs, and the defendant goes into her room. And she hears Justin, and Houston goes down to keep the peace to make sure he's there. And Officer Noonan is watching her. He's watching her. And she's on one knee. And she lunges, and she disappears. And she emerges with this, pointing at him like she is trained to do. Click at his face. And what does he see next? He draws his weapon, and he says, his testimony, it kind of slowed down. The whole thing took maybe 4 seconds, maybe even 3.5 seconds. His training has kicked in. His experience has kicked in. It was a surprise to him, certainly, because she got the drop on him. And why did she do this? Who knows? Maybe he's right. Maybe she was going through him to get to Justin. Maybe she was just so upset she was going to shoot anybody in front of her. Maybe she wanted him to shoot her. We don't know because she lied about it. We don't know. But the fact is, she started to shake, she started to tremble, and she lunged for the gun that he couldn't see. And what happened after she flipped? She stepped back, and now he knows, based on his training experience in the clip, there is not a round in the chamber. He knows that, and so he doesn't shoot. According to the defendant's testimony, he had every right to shoot at that point. And you know what? He actually did. He had a right to shoot her at that point. If you point a gun at a cop and pull the trigger, they get to shoot. But he didn't. Because he was controlled and disciplined.
Allegedly.
That's the way his career went. And so she steps back, tap, crack, and tries to do it. He doesn't shoot her then. And what's he doing at this point? Kelsey, no. Kelsey, no. Because he knows the threat isn't there, really, because there still wasn't one in the chamber. Kelsey, no. Kelsey, no. He is being disciplined like we wish every police officer, every law enforcement agent in this country was. He should be applauded for his actions on that day. Tap rack again.
She got lucky.
Now he knows one's in the chamber. Threat's on. She starts to raise it, and he shoots. He shoots twice to stop the threat. He stopped shooting when the threat was neutralized. Defense counsel, during his cross-examination, well, you would have unloaded her gun. He goes, no, that's not what you do. You shoot until the threat is neutralized. She was now down on the ground. But his training and experience are still taking over at this point, because what does he do? He still has his gun on her, because the gun's still there. You can't see it. Lieutenant Daly comes in, Lieutenant Houston comes up, and what does Officer Houston say that he sees when he comes upstairs?
Thanks.
That Officer Noonan is standing there with the gun low and ready. His training is still taking place. He's still doing what he was trained to do. The gun is put on the bed. He's calm and collected. He takes the gun and moves it away so people are safe. He's deliberate in those actions. When it's away from her, he starts to tend to her. Officer Core comes in, and he asks Officer Core to make the gun safe. He's cool, calm, and collected. That's what Lieutenant Daly expected, and that's what he was. He didn't make a mistake. That's what the credible evidence shows. And what did he say to Officer Houston after? And this just goes to state of mind, I know. That she pointed the gun at me, and it clicked. And she tried to rack him up. Immediately after, this wasn't him saving his hide or protecting himself. Seconds after this happened, that's what he said. Every piece of credible evidence points to the unmistakable fact that she was guilty. Every piece of physical evidence, scientific evidence, mechanical evidence, every piece of testimony from Daly to Houston to Tor, even Lauren Page, the mother, even the defendant corroborates what Officer Newman says. Every piece. Your Honor, I would suggest to you there is only one fair and just verdict in this case, and that is guilty. Thank you.
All right, so there it goes. What do you guys think? We're actually going to hear the verdict and be able to see the verdict at 1:30 Eastern Standard Time today. Make sure you stay tuned in for that. Let me know what y'all think about the closing arguments from the Commonwealth in this case in the comments in the chat. Wow, I was not expecting the verdict to be back this quick, but again, it's not shocking. So we're actually going to hear the verdict very shortly within the next hour. So I'm trying to think of how I want to do this because I want to be here and react with it or react to it with y'all, but we'll have to wait and see. Does anyone think the goal is to get not guilty verdict in order to sue PD civilly? It's a good point. I think it's to get not guilty just to stay out of jail for starters, but we'll have to wait and see. We don't know. Sounds like a door of doubt. Yeah, beyond a reasonable doubt. Did she point the gun at him? I don't think. It doesn't make sense to me. Don't most cops carry their guns already racked? Yeah, a lot of people. I'll even go as far as to say a lot of people, most people carry their guns racked, especially down here in the South. Commonwealth did not convince me. I don't blame you. Thank y'all for the super chats. Shout out to Les Cleaver in here. He says, praise God, justice is served on Jarvis Butts. That's how you see it. I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Thank you for the love and support, Les Cleaver. I appreciate it. Also, my beautiful, awesome, amazing Amy E is in here dropping the super sticker with the cake, reminding me she has the cake is cake in the building and that it is, well, past lunchtime at this point. So I'm going to try and I'm going to figure out what we're going to do with the verdict. Y'all stay on the lookout for that. Actually, I need to make sure I send you guys over to the Jury of Your Peers channel because we are going to be live streaming the verdict there. So make sure if you haven't yet, subscribe and check out the Jury of Your Peers channel. We'll be live streaming the verdict over on that channel so you guys don't miss it. We're actually going to go back and we'll start the live stream and go through the closing arguments, and then we'll just be in a waiting until that 1:30 time hits. So thank y'all for the love and support. Thank you all for liking the video. I appreciate y'all. The show would not be possible without you guys supporting continuously and showing love. So make sure if you haven't yet, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any time we go live or drop a new video. We'll be back for Friday. Friday, we've got another big show planned for you guys, so I'm looking forward to it. And as always, you all know what to do. Have a great rest of your day and keep growing, keep pushing, keep it classy. We gone. Peace. Appreciate it.